Should we be upset because one individual does not like another individual because of his race or ethnicity? Should we be upset when people make arbitrary choices based on skin color, sex, or sexual preference, if you will, or things like that? Now, let's delve into those things a little bit, or let me just ask another question. Should we be concerned that people are prejudiced? And if so, why? My ideas suggest, or at least some of my thinking on the subject, suggests that when we talk about racial preferences, they're really no different from any other kind of preference. That is, at least an economist is not in a position to say that it is somehow more righteous to prefer oranges to apples. I mean, how can we say that? You know, or we should like them equally. We just say, well, we just take the human preference as a given. Well, can we distinguish, or is there anything about race or sex, for that matter, to say that people should not have preferences with regard to race and sex? Is it somehow different from a person having preferences for Bordeaux wine versus California wine? I assert that there's no difference. That is, there's no argument at all that one can present, in my opinion, that says that we should like each other equally by race or sex or nationality, et cetera, et cetera. That is, those are just preferences. Now, so we want to think about, if you accept my hypothesis or my argument, well, do we really care? Is that the thing that we should be concerned with when we look at racial or sexual relationships? Or what about prejudice? People say that you should not be prejudiced. Or if you read sociology books, you get the impression that prejudice represents some form of pathology that needs curing by the sociological profession. Well, I think that prejudice is a very, very good word when we talk about racial or sexual relationships, but it's misused, or we don't give it an operational definition. That is, I think that prejudice would be a very, very good word if we stuck with its Latin derivative. And its Latin derivative is just to prejudge. Now, maybe an economist can best understand this, is when people make decisions on the basis of incomplete information, they prejudge, or they form stereotypes. Now you might ask, well, what's wrong with prejudging? Or what's wrong with forming stereotypes? Or what are stereotypes really? Well, when economists recognize that people must prejudge, that is, people must make decisions on the basis of incomplete information. And whenever you make decisions on the basis of incomplete information, you prejudge. And you try to find stereotypes to help you economize on information costs. To give you a flavor of this, suppose after our meeting here, you were to leave and go to the cafeteria, and as you're leaving the room, you step out of the door and you see a full-grown tiger standing there. Well, what would you do? Well, the uninteresting prediction is that most people would endeavor to leave the area in great dispatch. But that's not a very interesting prediction. But if we ask, why do you do that? Why? Is your decision to run based on any detailed information that you have about that particular tiger, or is your decision to run based on what you've seen of other tigers, about tiger folklore, or what your friends have told you about tigers? Probably your decision is based on that kind of information. That is, you are prejudging that tiger. you are using stereotypes. Okay, now, some people might say, well, I don't use stereotypes. Well, that person would go, before he would not prejudge the tiger. He would try to get more information. And he would go up to the tiger saying, here, kitty, kitty, try to establish whether he was friendly or not, and then only then, if he behaved in a menacing fashion, then the person would run. But most people make a quick calculation. They weigh the expected cost of an additional unit of information about that tiger versus the expected benefit, and you just find out that the expected cost exceeds the expected benefit, so they don't search for any more information. So now you have to be kind of careful if you said that person was behaving that way because he did not like tigers. But he's really behaving in a way to economize on information costs. Let me give you another example of it. Now, suppose there were a group of people in a room, and there were five white males. I need this? Okay. 5 white males, 5 black males, and 5 white females, and 5 black females. 20 people. And if I had 20 people standing up here, and you could not differentiate between those people except by race and sex, that's the only way you could differentiate among those 20 people. That is, you had zero information about any other characteristic, and I suggest to you, pick a 5-person basketball team among those people, and if you win the game, you get $1 million. Now, how would you choose? Now, you have zero information about their basketball playing proficiency, and they all appear to you to be equal, and you can only distinguish among them by race and sex. Well, a good Bayesian, he would probably confine a lot of his choices to the black males, knowing that there is an association between race and sex, not necessarily a causal one, but at least an association, at least in the United States. Now, even Germaine Greer would not say, well, I'm not going to pick men. And suppose she did. Suppose she chose to discriminate against men. Well, would we care? Or suppose you had a guy like Governor Wallace saying, well, look, I'm not going to give the blacks any chance to be picked. I would love to play against Governor Wallace's team. We clean them up all the time. So what I'm saying here is that a lot of behavior that is called discrimination or preferences may not in fact be that. That is, if I ask the woman in the audience if she knows anything about basketball, to pick out a 5-person team, she would probably confine her choices to the men, and her choice would be dominated by the black males. But a man from Mars, observing her behavior, would he be safe in concluding that she does not like females, neither does she like white males? No, he couldn't. That is, we have to be very, very careful about inferring preferences from watching people's behavior.